In this video, we will analyze whether France is worth expanding business in Australian firms through the globalization effect, level of both economic development and human development, cultural distance, and specific industries for export and import investing. France is an advanced and industrialized country, which is an integral part of European Union, and it's also Europe's second largest economy and the fifth largest economy in the world. Australia is a country located at Oceania and is one of the largest countries in the world. Australia is in the 18th of the Doing Business ranking, which provides objective measures of business regulations for local firms. Globalization could mean increasing integration of countries and markets and advanced technology diffusion, increasing separate of ideas and technologies, receding geographic differences in society and culture, or changing the economic, political, and cultural foundations of society. But at the same time, globalization has created new threats to individuals, societies, and ecosystems.
Listen to this.
France has been very much affected by a lot of structural change and this relationship with globalization and what is at stake. And I had to fight with an actual, nationalist party. Why? Because you had a lot of fears, a lot of lack of understanding about this current globalization in my own country. Building a France that is prosperous and open to the world, but also a France that is capable of recognizing and standing alongside those who have been forgotten and left behind.
This is the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and the speech he gave in the Davos Summit of 2018 seems to embody the full debate that happened in France since now 20 years about globalization.
Nos dirigeants ont choisi la mondialisation dérégulée. Ils la voulaient heureuse, elle s'est révélée affreuse.
This crisis is not just a global crisis, it's not just a crisis involving globalization, this is a crisis of globalization.
Cette crise est une crise de la mondialisation.
J'ai conscience qu'avec l'Union européenne, nous pouvons nous protéger de la mondialisation dans ses effets les plus durs et nous pouvons tirer parti de la mondialisation pour faire gagner nos entreprises et donc nos emplois.
The Gilets jaunes movement, for instance, embodied what Macron calls the left behind. Despite the negative perception from the public opinion, France seems to benefit from globalization. The emergence of Asian and Central European countries is creating new export opportunities, for instance. But now, a bit of comparison with Australia. In terms of HDI, Australia does better. In terms of GDP per capita, Australia does better. Yeah, in terms of net production, taking into account the GDP, France produces more wealth than Australia. Then how to explain the relative decline of France? France has abandoned the upscale segment in various sectors, as evidenced by the low level of research and development investment in these sectors compared to the same sectors in the United States or other OECD countries. As a result, French productive sectors are cut between their more advanced American counterparts and new competitors in emerging countries. Secondly, France suffered from disindustrialization. More industrialized than countries like the United Kingdom, France has suffered more from the general trend of declining industry in favor of services. And in particular, it has allowed the United Kingdom to gain total supremacy in the financial sector, even if this supremacy can be questioned by the Brexit. Thirdly, the insufficient response of France to the acceleration of demand from emerging countries. France has not been able to respond sufficiently to the acceleration in demand from high-growth Asian countries, in particular China and India. Its exports remain largely confined to its traditional markets, especially Europe. Another explanation is that France has outdated economic institutions regarding the issues generated by globalization. First of all, France underinvests in higher education and its universities suffer from a lack of authority and competition, both in choice of their professors and in the selection of students. France also suffers from the lack of bridges between fundamental and industrial research. There are too few venture capitalists or business angels, which are only 600 in France compared to the nearly 60,000 in the UK. In addition, there is a weakness in so-called incubation structures where university researchers, innovative companies, and commercial lawyers interact. Finally, there is also an overly rigid labor market, an excessive public debt, and insufficiently counter-cyclical macroeconomic policies, meaning that they do not help enough companies in times of recession, and therefore does not encourage them to engage in investments such as R&D that need to be maintained in the long term to be profitable. Nevertheless, and having said all that, we can say that overall, France is a winner of globalization. France is an advanced and industrialized country which is an integral part of European Union, Europe's second largest economy and the fifth economy in the world. This power is based on promising sectors that export a lot, like transport, agri-food, mass distribution or luxury. In terms of human capital, France stands out for the quality of its workforce and know-how, for the quality of its engineers and technicians, for the quality of its researchers in sciences like mathematics, physics, chemistry, medicine or biology. In sectoral terms, France has partly succeeded in maintaining its position in transport, aeronautics and energy, but has allowed its comparative advantage to be eroded in the information technology sector to the benefit of countries such as India or the United States. France has taken up the climate challenge earlier than others and has been reinforced in its energy choices by the need to limit greenhouse gas emissions. The development of second and third generation nuclear sectors puts it in a good position to benefit from a revival in the nuclear sector. France has many rivers that run through its vast landscapes. Hydroelectric energy is France's most important source of renewable energy, accounting for about 19.7% of installed capacity in France. It comes second to nuclear energy. As of 2015, France was the 8th largest wind power nation in the world, producing a total of 10.38 megawatts of electricity. The vast land area in France and the nature of the landscape has given France a huge potential of maximizing on the wind energy production. Being the largest country in Western Europe in terms of area, France is a key travel hub in Europe. France had transport networks that connected to its European neighbors and the world. The rail transport network is connected to Europe. Roissy-Charles de Gaulle Airport is one of the most important hubs in the world. Then as an Australian company, while considering and investing in France, we should consider the cultural distance between the two countries. In terms of culture, France's influence in the world is diminishing over time to the benefit of Anglo-Saxon and American culture, as well as a certain Asian soft power. Nevertheless, the French people remain committed to what they call the cultural exception. Its language, culture, and traditions are very important for a Frenchman. French is also chauvinistic. One only has to look at the impact of the Made in France in the country to see it. This French cultural particularity, which seems to resist relatively well to the effect of the standardization of globalization, may pose a problem for an Australian company seeking to invest in France. The case of Adelaide Submarines shows it. After securing the so-called contract of the century, the French company choosing to build Australia's future submarines has conceded it's having cultural clashes with its 50 billion customer, with lunch and meeting times proving problematic. Not everyone thinks like the French, explained Jean-Michel Billig, Naval Group's program director for the project to build 12 new attack-class submarines. He cited not only the barbecue as an example of Australian culture, which is an important part of fostering good work relationships, but said that there was a reciprocal need for Australians to understand that French sanctity for the lunch break, not just a sandwich snatched at the screen. Mr. Blig also suggested that the submarine project needed to be organized so that the French translations were not just into English, but Australian English, and for employees to speak a common language in cultural terms. Naval Group's global human resources business partner said the company was also developing tools for intellectual courses for French staff being posted to Australia to prepare French expatriates and their families how to behave, how to understand and decode Australia. This situation is a shining example of the cultural differences that can exist between France and Australia.
Next, we will talk about which industries that France should specialize in when looking to trade with other countries. According to the argument of David Ricardo, he discovered the law of comparative advantage in 1816. Comparative advantage mentions efficiency based on the relative magnitude. It clarifies that different production factors focus on different economic activities in terms of their relative productivity difference. Hence, France has to specialize in the production of those goods they produce most efficiently and purchase goods that they produce less efficiently from other countries. Firstly, France is the fourth leading industrial power, after the US, Japan, and Germany. As France's leading major trading power in the European common market, has exported about 516 billion with the sixth largest export in the world. Manufacturing is an important exporter, accounting for nearly 27% of France's GDP. And the structural reforms initiated by the French government promoted all aspects of foreign trade and promoted the growth of French exports. The aeronautical sector has become the major comparative advantage of French industry, with about 48.8 billion among the total exports. Since France is the second largest aircraft exporter in the world, which have a very systematic and comprehensive skills including large civil aircraft, transport aircraft, military aircraft, and other complex systems. France dominated the development of aircraft, and it is an oligopoly characteristic by large capital input and advanced production technology. Also, the Airbus is in the field of the civil aviation department of France, Germany, Britain, but all are based on French aircraft company, except the machine design, manufacturing, and integration assembly. The key technology of complex electronic systems and aircraft engines are made by French. Therefore, the cost of entering the market is very high, as the success of French aviation is the result of an industry strategy based on strong technical access, strategic Europe Union, and strong political support. Also, here comes to automotive as another comparative advantage industry in France. It has contributed 4.7% with 24.1 billion of the total exports in France, which is the second largest car producer in Europe, and one of the pillars of the global automotive industry. There are 23% of all vehicles sold in the European community are French, and the overall car sales in France rose 3% in 2018. The product composition of the French automobile industry is mainly for passenger car. There is total 13 automotive manufacturers, including 2 big local companies, Sejourns and Renault. The two companies are focusing on the types of vehicles, engines, safety features, energy conservation, and environmental protection. Especially highlight humanization, which is the biggest characteristic of French cars. Besides that, there are still many advantageous industries in France, such as packaging medicaments, wine, luxury industries, and so on, because France has manufacturing many excellent products with complete industrial systems and strong technological strength. Therefore, these are the industries to focus on when considering trade with other countries.
Trade is an important sector for Australia. The main countries doing business with Australia are China, the USA, Japan, South Korea, the UK, and New Zealand and Singapore. The main products are minerals, including gold, natural gas, as well as agricultural products and products such as beef, wool, wine, and sugar. Another important export is service, such as education, where thousands of international students travel to Australia for higher education. Australia's import in travel and tourism are the most important, followed by motor vehicle, telecommunication equipment, international flights, and the refined petrol. The Australian government has also signed a bilateral free trade agreement with the United States, Asian countries, New Zealand, Singapore, China, and Japan. It's also a signatory to the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Pacific Deal to forge close economic ties with 14 island nations. The classical theory proposed two advantages that might affect the trade, which include absolute advantage and comparative advantage. Absolute advantage means sure if a country can produce a commodity at a lower cost or with less resources than its trading partner, then the country has an absolute advantage in producing such goods. For example, tourism industry are very strong in Australia, and the tourism is always a backup force in the event of everything else falling in Australia. David Ricardo argued that countries shouldn't focus on those products they can produce most efficiently and buy products with lower productively efficient from other countries, even if it means this country can buy goods from another country more productive at home. Overall, Ricardo believed that countries shouldn't specialize and trade in the goods that they have comparative advantages. Australia shouldn't specialize mining industries, because mining is the important sectors which accounted for the main part of take-up the Australian industries and exports. With more than 120 billion invested in new projects, the GDP from mining increased to 26 billion in the first quarter of 2018 from 24 billion in the fourth quarter of 2017. The industry is making the most of vast natural resources, such as coal, oil, exploration, mining, and processing, gold, coal, iron ore, lead, zinc, diamond, and natural gas. Australia is world's largest miner of iron ore, lead, and zinc, with export revenue of around 245 billion. The mining industry has more than 600 listed companies. Therefore, specialized the mining industry can maximize the income of Australians' exports because it has the comparative lower opportunity cost than another industries.
Economic development industries only reflect the economic growth of per capita national income and the economic development speed of the country. This cannot fully reflect the development level of the country's human development industry. In order to more comprehensive understanding of the French, we think the manager should use the development level of the human development industry. From matter cultural development level reflect the progress of the whole society. For people to evaluate the social development provides a new train of thought. But because of the gross domestic product ratio calculation error may underestimate the ideal value of the GDP per head is higher than the national cultural development level. However, in the company's actual management, the manager tend to adopt the conservation principle to recording as the application of accounting principles. Australia and France has established a strategic partnership in the economic field, and the opening up of the international trade has benefited both sides. As a winner of the globalization, tourism has brought a significant economic growth to France, making it to be the third largest tourist revenue country in the world. Today, aerospace, automotive industry, packaging, medicine, and luxury goods has become the main French industry comparative advantage. However, Australia should make mining industry specialization. It can maximum the Australians' export earnings, but also attach the many overseas markets.
The application of renewable resources such as the wind, hydropower, and as the country with the most advertised and cheapest infrastructure. France's excellent infrastructure provides many conveniences for foreign companies which wanted to set up the business in the country. The quality of life and health care that making France to be the 10th largest purchasing power in the world and making it possible for foreign companies to make profit. For French companies to expand their export business, Australia is the ideal gate towards growth and development.